Good morning, everybody. I'm Pastor Nate Borman, one of the pastors at my Lebanon Lutheran Church here for a daily devotional thought. Actually, it's not daily anymore. Sorry, I'm still stuck in my old rut of speaking. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm here on Facebook at 8 a.m. We're walking our way through the book of Genesis right now. I'm going to cover a couple of chapters at a time. Today we are in Genesis chapter 11 and Genesis chapter 12. If you're following along, we're reading through Genesis one chapter at a time. I'm going to give some devotional thoughts 3 times a week and dive into the scriptures there. You can also subscribe to our a daily email. I'll leave a comment in the description. Leave a comment and let us know if you would like to receive those daily emails. It is a daily email right now. It's coming out at 7 a.m. What we try to do in those emails is just give a little bit more information, a little bit more background, a little bit of guidance. I understand because I've been there, and sometimes I still am there, that reading the Bible devotionally, even reading the Bible intellectually even can be difficult at times because you're trying to make sense of what's going on. You read something and it's not like reading any other book, any other novel, any other kind of thing, because you don't quite understand. In some ways it's a little bit like a history book. You have to understand some of the things that are going on to make sense of it. And so what I hope to do in these videos, and what I try to do in the daily emails and the daily posts on our website that are the same as the email, I try to help make sense of the Bible so that you can approach it and say, okay, I can get something out of this, because I want you to, Bible reading, devotional, especially for devotional purposes, I want you to get something out of it. I want you to get something out of it, and especially not just for your head, but for your heart too. I want you to get something out of God's word for your heart. That's why a big part of what I try to do with you is say, let's apply. Let me just not teach the Bible. Though that's a noble thing and a really good thing. I don't want to just teach the Bible. I want to bring the Bible to people's hearts and lives. So today we're looking at Genesis chapter 11 and Genesis 12. We're post-flood now. Genesis chapter 10. If you've been reading along, Genesis chapter 10 was a genealogy. The heading in my Bible calls it the table of nations. And God had told people, this is post-flood, this is after the flood, and God said, I want you to multiply, I want you to fill the earth. And the very last line of chapter 10 goes like this: from these the nations spread out over the earth after the flood. And that's when you enter chapter 11. And so what's happening is, remember, from Noah and the family, it was Noah and his wife and his sons and their wives, so 8 people in all. 8 people in all. From that 8, so we go back, we started with Adam and Eve, and we grew, and then God shrunk again, now just to 8, and from here God's going to grow again. And chapter 11 says, now the world, verse 1, now the whole world had one language and a common speech. And what happened in chapter 11, if you remember this is the Tower of Babel, right? People got very, very comfortable. And actually, here's what I want you to start to think about. I'm calling this devotional talk chasing the name, because remember, God had told the people to spread out, but what did the people decide they were going to do? They said, we're going to stay here. Let me just read to you what they said and see if you can notice what's going on. What are they chasing? What are they pursuing? They said to each other, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly. So they're trying to make use of the latest, greatest technology. They used brick instead of stone, tar for mortar. Then they said, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. So I want you to see something. What are they chasing? What are they pursuing? Instead of chasing and pursuing that which God had given them to chase and pursue, that is, to fill the earth, to spread across the earth, instead of doing that, they said, come, let's settle down here and let's build a tower that reaches up to the heavens, so that we might make a name for ourselves. See, they were interested in making their own name great. And there's a devotional thought for you to take home and to consider as you live your life. Who are you trying to make a name for? Are you trying to do things so that God's name would be known? Or are you trying to do things so that people will know your name? So that your name will be remembered for generation upon generation upon generation, so that people, when they say your name, they will say it with accolades behind it, right? With acclaim behind it, with a good reputation behind it. See, who are you? Whose name are you chasing? And I would challenge you to be honest about this, because I think a lot of times we want people to know our name. You know, I constantly think about that when it comes to like social media, when it comes to Facebook, when I post things, when I say things, when I get on a video like this. Whose name am I trying to get out there? Am I trying to get out the name of Nate Borman, or am I trying to get out the name of the one and only true God? I know what I want the answer to be, but sometimes we have to be honest about the answer and say, is that the chasing, the pursuit, the desire of my heart? Right? And see, this is what the people of Babel were doing. They had said, we're going to make a name for ourselves, and God said, nah, no, you're not. So God said God came down, and God confused their languages and said, you're not going to build this tower to the heaven. You're not going to have a common language anymore. So I'm going to do what you didn't do on your own, because I want my name to be great, God says. Now I want you to see something about God now. Because what did God do when the people of Babel, when the people who gathered there and built that tower there? I want you to see what God did. Look. Then the Lord came down. Again, then the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so that they will not understand each other. See, I want you to understand how much grace there is in this. That the Lord came down. Then the Lord came down. Come, let us go down. It says it a couple of times in that short little section. God came down. See, if God lets human beings go their own way, I talked about this in the sermon over the weekend. I'll talk a little bit more about it next weekend. But if God let human beings go their own way, how would that end up? We'd end up chasing our own dreams, wouldn't we? We'd end up chasing our own ideas. We'd end up building towers to ourselves up to the sky. We'd end up chasing all kinds of things that God says, those are not the things that you are to be chasing, right? So what did God do? God came down. In Genesis chapter 11, God came down and he confused their languages. He gave them more languages so they couldn't communicate anymore, so they had to spread out. But I want you to take this a next further, and I want you to see that there's Jesus in this too, that God came down, right? We're in the season of Epiphany when we see how God came down in the person of Jesus and made himself known through Jesus, right? God came down. God came down not just to confuse and to frustrate our plans, though sometimes God does do that. Sometimes God frustrates our plans so that we can refocus on his plans. But God also came down because he wanted to save us, because he wanted to rescue us, because he wanted to redeem us. God came down, and that's what you see as you keep reading. God says, I'm going to get active, because I see that the people on earth aren't active about this. I'm going to get active, and I'm going to carry out my plan. And that's what you see in Genesis chapter 12. In Genesis chapter 12, now we're getting into the story of Abraham. And what God, you already get this at the end of chapter 11, but God comes to Abraham and he says, Abraham, this is chapter 12, verse 2, I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great. You will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. God came to Abram. He's Abram at this point, not Abraham yet. God came to Abram, and he said, I'm going to do something. I'm going to bless the world through you. Right? So God is already speaking about, right? See again, God is clarifying. God came down and God clarified the promise. And now through the life of Abraham, God's going to keep his promise marching. And through the family of Abraham, God's going to send the Savior. See, God came down to frustrate our plans and to make his name great. So dive into Genesis chapter 11 and 12 today. Have a great day. The Lord be with you all and grant you his peace.